Pooja, thank you so much for talking to us. And it is quite momentous in a way. It is 25 years of establishing Khoj and running it so beautifully and successfully. Just the other day, when I was sending a message and I typed Khoj on iPhone or on Android, there are the emoji, the suggestion is a flashlight or those two big eyes popping out.
Right.
Those are the two emoji suggestions when you type Khoj, on WhatsApp, on any of the phones, right? So if that be the starting point, why the name? For what reason did you establish the organization? What is it that was missing 25 years back that you wanted to fill when you thought of putting Khoj together?
So first and foremost, a small correction. I did not start Khoj. It was a group of us, 7 of us. Subodh Gupta, Bharti Kher, Manisha Parekh, Ajay Desai, Ladi, and Anita Dube and myself. And we started Khoj, which was presented to us as a gift by Robert Loder, who ran the Triangle Arts Trust. He had come in from, he'd set up these kind of workshops with local artists and international artists in Africa during apartheid. And he realized how momentous and how fantastic they were, because they really broke barriers by just making art.
Right.
So we were the first workshop in Asia that he ever did. So he came to India and said, would you like to do something like this? I don't think anybody really believed him. But he then sent people like Manisha Parekh off to Uganda or Kenya for a workshop, Ladi to South Africa. And everybody came back charged saying, if they can do it in Africa, we can do it. And
Right.
I was one of the working group, at least for the first workshop, because I was running a gallery at that point, the Aisha Gallery. And we got together and we said, we're going to do this workshop. And in the art world itself, you had a few prominent galleries, maybe a Dhumimal and Art Heritage, etc. Very conservative art world where it was painting, sculpture. Here there was a whole bunch of artists who were getting these scraps. Some artists are going abroad and coming back, getting this information that there's installation art, which is a different kind of art, making. And there's something known as, site-specific work, and not being able to have a space to do it. So
Right.
these workshops were actually experimental spaces. And I think that is the core of what Khoj has remained. A space for artists to work, experiment, push their practice, try out new ideas, work side by side in a non-competitive, non-hierarchical way in the art world. I think what we were doing was at that time filling two needs. One, for local artists to really experiment, have a safe space to fail. And the second was to really forge connections outside of institutions, outside of galleries and colleges, etc. And I think that's how it began.
So when you look back, how do you rate yourself and how you fared on that objective, one? And two, how much of that objective has changed over the years, if at all it has changed?
Well, I think we really fulfilled our objective, because as you may or may not know, we set up the whole South Asia network. We had similar first workshops in the region in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal and Bangladesh. And then we went on to develop similar organizations in the region. So there's Brito in Bangladesh, which is now at the Documenta, which we set up and helped set up. There's Vatsala in Pakistan. There was Tirtha in Sri Lanka, which Anoli, Jagat were part of.
Yes.
And building that network along with Triangle Trust. But I was really privileged because I would travel all over South Asia getting these artists together. We did our first workshop ever of South Asian artists in 2001 at a time when 9/11 happened, 2 months after September 11th in November, where we had a huge range of artists come in from across South Asia.
Right.
And then we continue to say that you do whatever you want to do, but core invitees for some of our projects have to be from South Asia. So as you know, music, books from South Asia circulate. Art is much more difficult. So the fact that we were able to have a circulation of artists to go and forge solid relationships. I have some very, very close friends, and so do many of us. We realized in 2005-06 when every artist was out on a plane, that was a big moment after China. So then we were wondering, are we even relevant? Because there we were actually forging those international connections. And international means truly the global South connection. But here every artist was on a plane.
On their own, yeah.
And that's when we said, okay, no, actually we are even more relevant, because what galleries will not support will be more ephemeral practices. And we started supporting performing arts, social practice, community art practices, other kinds of interdisciplinary work like art and science, art and gaming.
You started with minimal or no infrastructure. How did you go about getting the basic infrastructure and getting a home for Khoj in place?
Yeah. So for 5 years, we were an annual workshop, and I love telling this story, so you're going to hear this story.
Of course.
For 5 years, we were just an annual workshop. And actually, after 5 years, because Modi Nagar, where we used to do the workshop, became so predictable, we said, okay, time to close. It was becoming repetitive. But there were artists in South of India who said, we want to do it. So we kind of held hands with another working group. And actually, we've had workshops in Mysore, Bangalore, Srinagar, Patna, Goa, all over the last few years. Because it's a way of being a catalyst. We saw the international workshops as being catalysts. We were able to get half this building, is what you're sitting in 2002 with the support of Robert Loader. We found this beautiful little place because we had done an initial pilot residency at Pablo's studio down the road. And so we knew Khirki village, and there was Pradeep Sachdeva, who had this beautiful architect's office, which worked well as studios because they were architect's office. And he was willing to sell because he was moving into a bigger place. And so we bought that with support from Robert, and we really worked at it for 10 years. But by the end of it, it was an old place, etc. It was in 8, 9, 10, where so the artists would live somewhere else, because this was just studio space. They would live in a little apartment in South Extension.
Right.
Then they had to travel up and down. But we said, okay, now that's the way it is. Till we rented the building next door for another project, 48 Degrees, that I was working on. And we said, okay, but I said, wow, what a great idea if the artists could actually live here. Wow, they could live and work. And,
it's all just contained space.
So we said, maybe we can buy it. And it was, okay, let's see how much it would cost, etc. We had started trying to build a corpus in 2005-06 because HIVOS, which had funded us from 1997 onwards, almost 10 years, had kind of waved a red flag and said, hello, after we have gone, how are we going to survive?
Right.
We said, yes, we must work. So we had done these artist portfolios where every artist had given us a photo. So we had some of the top artists who really felt for Khoj, give us one image each. We made an edition of 40 at that time. We were really ambitious. And we sold it, and we had a bit of money lying in our corpus. So I started negotiating this building, and as luck would have it, they were willing to sell. So we bought it with the money we had. We went and spoke to Amrish Arora of Lotus Design, and we said, listen, we can't afford you and your things, but can you do this for us? I mean, this is a beautiful space. Can you make it purpose-built in some way with minimal alteration? Do what you want. And he said, okay. And then he gave me this big costing. He said, I'll do it pro bono. Hats off to him. But you'll have to pay consultant and, of course, the cost. So I said, okay, give me how much? And when he looked at it, I said, I can't afford it. You bring it to half, which he did. And while we were doing the designing, I went out and we did some more fundraising. Again, all artists contributed. Right. I feel that now that we have a building, a beautiful one, which funds, you need a sink fund for it because kabhi kuch ho jata hai, you need it painted, this, that. But that's still manageable. If our admin and overhead costs can be taken care of, then you can actually raise money for programs, because that's what people really want to do.
Want to fund and support.
Yes.
Right.
So that is where we are, and I'm hoping that despite the precarity, which has become even worse after COVID, we will keep going, because somewhere, or we'll do quieter work. Maybe we'll stop for, we may not do major stuff, but we might look at our archives. Like that's what we did. We put out our new website, as you have seen, which is really quite wonderful, because we needed to bring out our curatorial voice over the years, which we actually found after looking back.
Right.
So there is time, there are other things. We have an invaluable archive.
I guess, you've spoken about the curatorial inclusivity in a sense on the kind of topics that you look at and the kind of interventions that you want to make curatorially in program way. What is it that stands apart as far as Khoj is concerned about the broader idea of inclusivity?
Okay, starting with our staff. We have no problem with religion, gender, and we have non-cis gendered staff members, which we're very proud of. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't make a difference to us.
Right.
Right?
Now, do you particularly try and make that, or it is that you don't have a problem if there's an application to accept?
Well, I think it's a bit of both.
Hmm.
So, of course, the first thing is, are they capable? Because finally we have an
Absolutely.
organization to run and it's public money and that must work.
Sure.
So I think where we are located, and ever since we moved here from 2002 onwards, and at that time we called it community art, we did feel that we needed some form of respect and trust. Who were we who walked in there with all these, this building, even then it was a white building, smaller one.
Right.
But, we had international people, the crazy artists doing stuff. What did everybody in Khirki even think of us? Who are we to come here and just pretend like now we... How can you use that privilege? Let's put it that way. And so we actually did a lot of things. We did the first mural here where we talked to the people and said, what do you want? And they said, we want landscape and we want national leaders. So we gave them Gandhiji and we gave them a Van Gogh background, which they loved. And we had Gandhiji holding a note with motorcycle. It was really a take on consumerism.
Right.
Which they stood there and saw young artists paint.
How beautiful.
So we had done that
Right.
for the village in 2002 when we moved in here. So that was our way of kind of building trust. We did some shop makeovers and stuff like that, which, we said we want to work with you, and they said, why?
So there's one question that I've always had, and I'm very glad that I have the opportunity to sort of ask you that. And do you think you intellectualize the whole art space at Khoj a bit too much?
Well, the fact that you're saying a bit too much, maybe you feel me too. Okay, but I think not. In fact, often, when we're writing concept notes, I often say that no jargon, small jargon, but you cannot, if I don't understand it, nobody else is going to understand it.
No,
Go
but
back and write it in good English.
But that's one aspect. But you are a very seasoned and an aware person in the art space. So let's extend the question. Is what is written to be consumed by people who are already initiated and have had a journey in art, or would it actually open up for people who may not understand or appreciate?
So let's put it this way. We've often asked ourselves, that only 50 people came, only 100 people came, only 200 people come. See, you can't have it both ways. If we say we're really at cutting edge, we're really pushing new practices, anything new does not have a huge audience.
By definition.
Because it's new.
Right.
It's not mainstream.
Right.
So you will only get the audience that is really interested to learn, to figure it out, and to be curious. Right?
Right.
When we do public interventions, which we have done several of, the latest being does the Blue Sky Line
Right.
in the mall, then we say that access is primary then. So what are we? That's why the games were there. That's why we had
interactive, inclusive,
and you made sure that you had Dr. Blue Sky, some fun stuff, without dumbing down the art. Ever, right? But you're making people interact, really talk about it, and get them to talk about these issues and become points of conversation.
Sure.
Right? I think that we cannot take away from the fact that Khoj also exists to build and contribute to the discourse of contemporary art.
Right.
And we have over the last few years. So we were building discourse, right? And now, of course, it's mainstream to talk about performance art. So I think contributing to discourse is as important. And for that, just like if you do an MBA, you write in a certain manner. I mean, MBA also has a jargon. You can't talk about econometrics without understanding what econometrics is.
Right.
So it's not that you're intellectualizing, you're just using the right word for what it is. We try really hard to make it open, and that's why our open days are where the artists are there, so you can go and talk to them. We don't think that you have to dumb everything down to the lowest denominator, but we can speak in a language when people
which
come,
is easy to consume.
Which I'm happy to say, this is what the artist was thinking and this is what it's all about. I may not get into the nuances. And a good artwork actually can work at every level. Keep unpeeling it, and it can go deeper and deeper.
And still engage you.
Yes.
Next 25 years, do you intend to do more of the same, or is there something that you think you will take a turn?
Okay, so quite honestly, the last 4 or 5 years, we've really been examining those two questions which pop up at you in the art in our website, like what can art do, what can art be? I think what can art be has been answered a lot when we looked at art and science, art and gaming. What can art do? What should art do has become a really primary thing. Because I think for artists to say that, we have a mirror to the window or to the world is...
Society or whatever else.
That's fine.
Right.
But what else? What then? I'm not at all saying that artists have to become activists. But through their work, can they in some way push some deeper understanding of, various issues? Can they... art is so powerful, and I really believe that. Because it can produce such great affect. And it can say things that words can't, different languages can't. And I think that can produce change at some subliminal level of individuals. And it is individuals and moments that make movements. It's not just all of us suddenly get together. It's because you believe in, anti-cancer or anti-something that you will say, ye to karna hai.
Right.
Or, and then she will believe and he will believe, and then it becomes a movement. So I think that's where I think art makes a difference. So I think we at Khoj have been pushing also to look more deeply at social practice and socially engaged practice, and you can call it whatever you want, because I think artists need to, if we don't want to be relegated just to the art market or just to the periphery of society, artists need to engage with society, and that means taking on a small community and working with them, and that's the kind of projects that we've been encouraging artists to do. And I think that's what Khoj does, no? It will support artists in a practice that doesn't seem mainstream, and then maybe once it reaches a critical mass, suddenly we have a lot of artists who say this is our practice. Where it will be in 25 years is, I won't be around 25 years, right? And I won't, and I say that because having run a whole arts management program for 10, 15 years, which is the ATSA, the Art in South Asia, I think one of the problems of many institutions in India is when there's a founder syndrome. So whereas I'm not the only founder, but I have taken the mantle forward, so to speak, over the last 24 years at least.
Right.
Ever since I took it on, or at least the last 20 years. And I think it's really important to find the right successor and to develop a succession, because we've already started that process. I mean, we've engaged a consultant, because the easy part is for me to say, okay, I'm gone. Now let's put out a call for applications and it's out there. But what kind of person are we really looking for? You can't just write a copious job description. And before you hand over, I think it is the duty of the person there to actually put systems in place.
True.
So, whether it's your financial policy, the way the curators work, what are the systems, write what the core of Khoj stands for.
Absolutely.
In writing. Of course, the way the new person will come and deliver that core is completely up to them.
But there's a preamble to
it. Is a preamble. It is like saying that we exist for artists. And I want that written in stone, because it can't suddenly exist for the imagination of one curator. I want to do this exhibition, so I will now do that. Great, but how is the artist benefiting? What have you done for the artist first? How is it really pushing their practice? Are we really breaking new ground? I mean, these are things that Khoj has stood for and has been respected for.
Sure.
Right? And I think if we don't put that down as one of some of the tenets, literally, of what, and the director can do it in any way they want. Are you building this new discourse? Are you contributing to artistic discourse? I mean, those should be the premises that should be neatly written out. And then whoever comes can deliver it in their way. They need not do residencies. They may want to do 1 year long projects.
Right.
With just 2 artists.
Sure.
Fine.
But as long as
are you meeting these criteria?
The basic criteria, right? Absolutely.
And I think that is the process we're in at the moment. And at the end of that, we will really come up with a very good job description of the kind of person we really need and want. And then I will step down or up maybe to the board or not, and we'll take it from there. But I do think it's my responsibility to make sure that the transition is done not just in good faith, but it's done in the way that in a professional manner. Because if I talk about professionalism for myself, we must ensure that Khoj is also, done, everything that is done at Khoj is professional. And
absolutely.
So that's the way we are thinking.
No, I think that's also, very sort of absolutely wonderful to hear that. It's also important you owe it back to what you've sort of established and ran, that it has a continuity. And I look forward to the day you retire. I'll have more time and you will not be pushing my meetings away then, right?
I will always attend to your meetings.